Get this thing started on YouTube. I'm going to talk about the Voluspa and a couple of things that come to my mind about how we get to where we are. You know, the fucking exhausting shit you got to deal with when you deal with people. Yeah, I think that's what I'm going to talk about.
That's right.
Mute that. There we go. So we are live. Live and in concert, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome once again to Brian Wilton. If you don't know, check out brianwilton.com because I'm pretty happy with that website. Renee has done a fantastic job. I mean, it's really exceptional as far as I'm concerned. There's a couple of things that I want to spend some time discussing, and it's kind of hard to relate them to the lore, but I think I can do it. So I'm going to give it a shot. When we, I think most people, when they look around, they would agree that the shit just ain't kind of right in the world. There's just too much killing all over. Life is cheap. You know, everybody says all lives matter and Black lives matter. But if you look around the world at what's going on everywhere, it's a pretty safe bet that that sentiment doesn't really matter. It's not a commonplace ideology that life matters at all. So you have to ask yourself, where do I find in the lore what I need to change my little world to make it something better? I would like to be prominent enough to make a real change, a real effect in the world, but unless you're the president or something like that, that's probably not how that's going to work out. So how do I do that when 90% of the people you deal with, well, they really, you know, so except for your close family members, how do you do that when everyone you deal with has a wall, has some kind of emotional baggage that is the predominant defining characteristic of everything they do in life and how they relate to others? How do you go ahead and be brave enough to handle giving the best of yourself to individuals who may not really be able to understand or process it? Because it ain't the easiest thing to do. It's one of the reasons I'm talking about courage so much and love so much. Because we form defense mechanisms as to how we're going to relate to the world to protect us. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that at all. But I had a friend send me a video today that really succinctly put it into terms that I really appreciated. And it's about there's always motivational talkers and speakers and people that have done shit. And some days people put me in that, and some days they don't. This guy is a particularly impressive specimen of peak human physical conditioning. I mean, there's no uncertain terms. He's got the pull-up record. I think it's something like 4,000 pull-ups. He's been to BUD/S, Ranger School, and Air Force Pararescue School, an ultra marathoner. He's just tough. He's just literally tough. But when you hear his story, you begin to see how people begin to develop. And one of his he tells a story, and I shared one last week about how I kind of grew up when I was a kid, when I was a young boy. You know, those parents, everybody keeps romanticizing this traditional values. Some of those people that had what we would like to perceive as traditional values were meaner than shit. This man remembered watching his father beat the shit out of his mom. And he was a boy, maybe 9 or so. So he jumped on his dad's back. Well, his dad beat him badly. And so much so that, you know, his mother couldn't send him to school the next day. there was a bunch of there was a bunch of growth that had to happen. He had to figure out how to deal with that. A lot of times we won't ever understand how to relate that to the world. How do I deal with that kind of stuff that I had to deal with growing up? How do I go through this to make it better? More importantly, how do I even begin to recognize that that's something that's causing me a problem in life? Well, my drug addiction was a pretty clear indication of what mine was. It's just a symptom. There's things to deal with. There's pain. There's something that we got to function with. But the human being is an amazing thing. See, I can take that away. I can replace it with something else, but I can toughen up another part of me to be able to deal with some of this other stuff. And there goes the first brick in the wall, right? I mean, it's a fairly common thing and people talk about it all the time. Where do we see that in the lore? Because we look around the world, we see that life is not really valued. We're being told that it's supposed to be valuable, but we're looking around the world and tens of thousands of people are literally dying every day from violence and much of it caused by the kind of emotional trauma that we all had to grow up with and figure out how to deal with. Some people never do. Some people are perpetual victims from it from there on out. And I look through the lore, and I've been on this kick lately about all the love stories in the lore. Because when you boil it right down to, there's a big bunch of it that's what it's about. Somewhere in that story, there's something that touches the heart. Somebody loves somebody powerfully enough to do something magnificent. Somebody loves somebody strongly enough to really rise to the occasion and become something better. A mother for her son, a prospective husband for a new wife, so on and so forth. A parent, a husband, a wife, a daughter, a son, all through there's these tales of great emotional bonds and the lengths to which these gods will go to preserve, protect, and empower those bonds. And we're all sitting here looking at it. And like I say, you look around the world, people are dying and nobody really gives a shit. I mean, I don't got any skin in that game. So all of a sudden, that life that's lost really doesn't mean anything to me at all because I'm not losing anything. Nothing changed about me. That person died. So big deal. So that life doesn't have a value, does it? But I'm supposed to. How do I get past that? So in my position, many times when I get a phone call, it's a crisis kind of phone call. Hey, I've got a gun in my mouth. Hey, I've got this rope here. Hey, it's usually a crisis moment. Do you know the one thing that cuts through all of that, and it may never be reciprocated, it may never be understood, it may never be properly processed, is the ability to love that individual no matter what. And that's not the easiest thing to do. Now, we can do that in the crisis moment when we see someone we care about hurting. We can pull out what it takes to be that individual to offer that kind of love and support in a moment of crisis. And yet when we come to deal with individuals on our daily life, if you look around at the people that try to love us, they're beating their fucking head against a wall we've built. That's a real tough place to be. So basically what we're trying to cultivate here is an attitude in an individual that will run towards the gunfire. That's not a natural human behavior. It's not a natural process in your mind to run towards the sound of danger to your life. Nor is it natural human behavior to run towards something you know is going to hurt you. And yet, where do I find that in the Lord to empower people to want to be something more for somebody else because their life matters? How do I build within other people the idea that, run towards the gunfire, live, love hard, be what you're supposed to be, keep growing? because those are real challenging things to do in today's day and age, to even live outside of the walls that we all build to protect what's going on around us. Where do we cultivate the courage to love hard, knowing that it might not be reciprocated? You might have to roll it all up, tuck it back where it came from, and try again somewhere else. When do we make the decision of whether or not it's still worth it to go on trying to love people? That's a real shitty fucking place to be. It hurts. How do we encourage people to get up and try again, to run towards the gunfire? Because that's literally what we're facing in today's world. It's trying to take this spirituality, this faith, and build within individuals a 9-pound hammer for our heart to get up and try again and go forward and give it what you got. Do your best. Step up to the plate. Love somebody hard. Knowing full well you might get shot. You might get a swift kick in the balls. You might get your heart literally ripped out, chewed up, stomped on, and move forward. Is it even worth it? Is it worth it to try to build up the calluses like the calluses on our hands? To keep trying? To keep trying to inspire people to want to do that? I think it is. And I'll tell you why. Because our children and the children of those around us and the children of those we try to help fucking need an example. They need an example of strong, confident men and women. It's easy to rush out there with a sword or an axe or an M16 or M4 or whatever, ride into a tank or get into a fight with a ball bat or whatever you want to do and go out there and show how much of a man you are, or stand beside your man and back him up. Somebody's trying to sneak up, or it's easy to get out there and engage in the savage physical efforts that you see amongst primates and savages and animals and men of a lower state of mind when need be. We don't have those examples for our children of people who were courageous enough to go out there and try to love someone, even though they know that's probably going to hurt. Yep, that's going to suck. Do it anyway. That young man that I was telling you about that they called the world's toughest man, after his father beat him until his whole body was black and blue, he internalized it like all children do. He got fat. He got fat. And then he decided to do something about it. He was not doing very well in school. He was going to flunk his junior year. He just wasn't going anywhere. I can identify with that. Didn't really ever get fat until I became successful, but kind of the big old Republican pork barrel kind of fat banker looking cat that I was. Anyway, so when he joined the military and found this heyday of competition, much like I did, I also found a place where part of that wall that I was using to protect myself from that kind of abuse, I began to be brave enough to step outside of that. I began to be confident enough in my own abilities to stand up like a man for the first time in my life. And it was a truly liberating experience, but it was painful. It was physically challenging. It was tough. It hurt. And we can all see that. We can all identify with that by being able to physically become more. When are we going to begin to cultivate the ability to emotionally become more? Because people can be fucked up. How are you going to step up to the plate and figure out how to love them? And they may not be worth it. They literally may not be fucking worth it. They may be the lowest form of human garbage. They may not be worth it at all. Now, I'm not talking about lowering your standards. I'm talking about those individuals that are in pain and need our help. I'm not talking about just pick somebody. Well, that'll be a good enough partner. That's not what I'm talking about at all. I'm talking about being that kind of individual that has what it takes to reach out and show some compassion and demonstrate that maybe life does matter. Because there are certain environments, like I said, there are certain environments in this world, life is really fucking cheap. And it don't matter. I couldn't really figure out where to see that in the lore. I see Tyr when he goes home and deals with his mother and his father and his 900-headed grandmam that he loathed. He's dealing with some of that to secure his heritage. It's no accident that he has the warder of men alongside him to help him along that path. I see some of that when I see Frey sacrifice that that very phallic symbol of a warrior when he gives his sword to the next generation, so he might set aside the warrior mentality to become the husband that Gerda deserves. I see some of that between Thor and Sif. I see some of that between Thor and his daughter Thrud when Alvasmal shows up, completely unworthy to ask for her hand in marriage, and he does what a father should do. He protects his daughter from a lesser man. He has what it takes to stand up and say, "No, you ain't quite worthy enough, buddy. Go keep moving." But we have to get it into perspective in today's world. And one of the few places I really see that occurring is at the end of the Voluspa when we start talking about Ragnarok. So Ragnarok is some of the things that I'm going to be talking about tonight. And I'm framing it all in that context of being the kind of individual that has the emotional stability to do what they need to do with regards to the people around them, and maybe not people around them. You may not know them from Adam, but hey, somebody needs you. From my perspective and my point of view and the things that I have to deal with, I deal with a lot of phone calls, and it's exhausting. And every one of them needs to know on the other end of that line that there's somebody out there that gives a shit, that makes it worth moving forward. Some days, if I were to live behind that wall that I built for myself as a teenager, I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing today. I wouldn't be able to step out there and encourage somebody to take something that I wrote or something that I said and take it further than I ever could and go be as successful with it as you can possibly be and do something magnificent. Because that's what I'm asking everyone to do. Not to tell me that I'm right, but to take it further than I ever could. So we start in the Voluspa at stanza 33. And it starts with the death of Balder. When the ego of some man who is not measured, who cannot or will not even try to measure up to what it means to be someone like Balder, tells another man, doesn't take the action himself, tells another man, whispers in his ear, the outcast, the downtrodden, the crippled at the edge of the crowd, much like Christians do to people in the street, speaking to the downtrodden and the outcast and the people at the fringe element of society. Go ahead and take that shot. It'll be a most worshipful thing. And they take that shot and they steal the sun from somebody else's world. They don't really care if you like them or not. Every time we talk about, when we look at South Chicago or something, when these people die, we're so desensitized to it, we never really begin to consider that person meant the world to somebody. That person mattered to somebody else. Oh, they said something bad about you? Who gives a fuck? I'm sitting here talking, people talk bad about me all the time. I mean, people that are supposed to be close to me, I see the stuff they post, vague booking about me and talking about me behind my back, because everybody that hears it comes and tells me. It doesn't change anything about me. It doesn't make me shorter, doesn't make me taller, doesn't make me uglier, it doesn't give me a third eye or in the middle of my forehead. It doesn't change a damn thing about me. Pisses me off, but I figured out how to get over it these days. But this is where we start. We're starting in a world where that's the norm of people stabbing each other in the back. And I'm sitting here with the unmitigated gall to ask these people that listen to these videos and read my books to say, go ahead and love them anyway. Why? What good does that fucking do? Well, For one, it'll set you free. For one, it'll set you free of being able to carry around the things that make you angry and hurt you and challenge you and prevent you from becoming what you're supposed to become. Because until that young man that I was talking about that did buds in SEAL school and went through Ranger school and went through the Air Force pararescue, the only man to ever do all three, until he began to deal with some of those things that were in his way that kept him from even trying to do that, he couldn't do it. When he began to try to deal with it, he began to achieve great things. That's what we need to be looking at. So here we are with Balder, some man's ego, some person sitting there talking to him at the edge of the crowd. Go ahead and take a shot, stab that old boy in the back. It's all right. We all don't like that person. It's okay. You can talk about him. Spread whatever gossip you want to. Take a shot. That's the world we live in. From the branch which seemed so slender and fair came a harmful shaft that Heroth should hurl. But the brother of Balder was born ere long, and one night old fought Odin's son. His hands he washed not, his hair he combed not, till he bore to the bale blaze Balder's foe. But in Fensalir did Frigg weep sore, for Valhall's need would you yet no more. So when Vali was born, he didn't comb his hair, he didn't wash his hands, and he grew to adulthood, and one day, and he went and got Hoder and brought him to the balefire. That singleness of mind, that dedication to the purpose, that drive is something we need to all be aware of. And see, being one day old, you have to recognize he was not crippled by any of the emotional garbage that so many of us are trying to deal with as we move forward in this world to achieve some kind of success or take some kind of fucking action. He doesn't have that. He is unencumbered with that kind of nonsense that we're all still sitting here trying to sort through. And he achieved what he was supposed to achieve. So there's a real powerful idea there of a mindset we need to be adopting or should be wanting to adopt if we ever wish to become what we're supposed to become. Now, he knew what that was. Without a shadow of a doubt, he knew what that was supposed to be. He was supposed to bring Hoder to the balefire. He bore him to the bale blaze. It means he took his life. He killed him. The ego-driven identity we know as the mischievous one suckered this poor sap into doing something that he convinced him was, well, it's the right thing to do. Go ahead and take a shot at that guy. Steal the sun from that world. and it'll really be a most worshipful thing. You can be cool like me. That's the kind of mindset that you typically associate with that water cooler gossip and that kind of polite character assassination you see at the water cooler at work on Monday. Or sometimes in these rooms where people get together and since they can't measure up to Brian Wilton, they'll certainly take a shot at him. I don't care. It ain't stopping me. There's a singleness of purpose there in my mind of what I want to achieve. And I know what it looks like. And I'm not going to let anybody get in the way of that. So when we're dealing with the world that's in absolute nightmare of a status where literally everybody's fucking doing that, I think it would behoove us to begin to identify, to create that image of what we want to become and really get that single-mindedness of purpose on what that should be. All the other stuff that goes with it is extraneous nonsense. We have been taught that is important. And it doesn't matter a hill of beans. It doesn't move us forward. It doesn't help us become what we're supposed to become. It's an anchor that stops us from forward progress. But we think it's important. We've been told it's important because this person over here said it was. Well, who the fuck are they? What have they accomplished in life? Who are they to tell me what's important? Why should I adopt that? We see that lesson taught when Sigurd figures out that Reagan has been feeding him a line of horse shit all his life. Go kill Fafnir. I can't do it, but since you love me, since I raised you, since I brought you up in this world and gave you this skill and this craft, you owe me. But it'll be worth it. It'll be worth it. That's the line of nonsense we've been raised with. Well, you need to hate them because I hate them, and I know a little bit more than you do, And that's really what makes it okay. What? Why do I want to fill my horn up with a bunch of extraneous nonsense that's going to slow me down from the dedication of purpose I see exhibited by Valley? Because here's the bottom line. The next one it says, but in Fensalir did Frigg weep sore for Valhalla's need. Would you yet no more? All of that action, all of that great, magnificent exertion didn't change the fact that Balder is still gone. That life didn't matter to the ego-driven individual. That life is gone. And now we have a goddess, the wife of Odin. She is weeping sore. She has lost a son. And Nanna has lost a husband. And Forseti has lost a father. And yet still Forseti becomes that individual who gives the most. He puts to sleep all suits and all those things of law and measures. He still meets it out with a fair, even level, even-handed wisdom that befits the grandson of Odin and Frigg. Even though he doesn't have a father, they tell him how to do it. He figured it out somehow, didn't he, guys? And we got to do the same thing. A single-mindedness of purpose. One did I see in the wet woods bound, a lover of ill and to Loki like. By his side does Sigyn sit, nor is glad to see her mate. Would you yet know more? And that talks about the relationship status of men and women. Here's that individual whose ego-driven behavior, finally the gods said, we've had enough of it. They bound him to a rock. They put a serpent above his face. And his girlfriend, Sigyn literally means girlfriend, has to sit there with a bowl and keep the venom of his actions from falling on his face. And every time she dumps the bowl, he throws a big old stinking abusive fit and just emotionally abuses her to no end until she's crying too, until she gets that bowl back over there. And she sacrifices everything she could have ever become or ever needed to become or ever wanted to become so she could keep the venom of her boyfriend's actions from falling in his face. That's the culmination of what an ego-driven individual will do. He will steal the life from his partner. That's exactly what's happened. We live in that same kind of world today, don't we? It's always funny. Hey, honey, did you get up and make me a sandwich? Since you is in there, grab me a beer. I'm going to go out with the boys. You know, you sit here with the kids. I've been in houses doing things I shouldn't have been doing, and the woman's in the back room with the kids while the men were out there doing things that don't need to be talked about, to tell you the truth. As soon as she stuck her head, you get your ass back in there with them kids, woman. Anything she might have ever thought she ever wanted to be was given away. And if she don't act right, she'll get beat up. What? How are you supposed to love somebody like that? How are you supposed to help that guy when he's a crisis mode? Because someday he'll come home and she'll be gone. Or he'll catch her in bed with somebody or his best bud. It never fails. And he'll be clueless as to why it all fell apart. And I'm sitting here asking you, you got to love him, because quite frankly, if we're to begin to embrace the idea that these lives do matter, his life matters too. You've got to start somewhere, and it may be the lowest form of human filth, but it's got to start somewhere. Maybe someday he can grow up and fix all that, because I'm sorry doesn't cut it amongst this crowd. You're going to have to get up and do some action. You're going to have to make some things right, period. I'm sorry is not, I apologize. No, that's not how that works around here. There's no forgiveness. You got to earn it. You got to step up to the plate and figure out how to stand there and take it like a man when somebody's going to cuss you out because you screwed the pooch. You earn it. Now, from the east, there pours through poisoned vales with swords and daggers the river Slith. Slither in the house. And she stole that. Northwards a hall in Nithvalir of gold there rose for Sindra's race, and at Ulkil near another stood, where the giant Vermeer his beer hall had. So these are describing the homes of the enemies of the gods and the giants. Slith means the fearful, a river in the giant's home. The swords and daggers may represent the icy cold. Now, Nithvilir, the dark fields, is a home of the dwarves. Perhaps the word should be Nithviol, the dark crags. And Sindri, the great worker in gold among the dwarfs. Okulnir, the not cold, possibly a volcano. And Brimir, the giant, possibly Ymir, out of whose blood, according to the dwarves, were made. The same here appears to simply mean the leader of the dwarves. So in that two stanzas, there's an awful lot of information. And if you're not sure about all these, you know what, shit, I'm going to share this because this needs to be known. Doop, 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 doop. Why? Because I am the Quitsack Kitteract. See that footnote right there? If you guys have not gone to sacredtext.com and read the Poetic and the Prose Edda and availed yourself of the information available in the footnotes, you're missing out. You're really missing out on what all this means. Now, it's right there, the Nithviol, the Dark Crags, all these footnotes, understanding that stuff is essential. Understanding those definitions is essential. Let's see here. Somebody needs to mute themselves. Anyway, in a hall I saw far from the sun. On Nastrond it stands, and the doors face north. Venom drops through the smoke vent down, for around the walls do serpents wind. I saw there waiting through rivers wild treacherous men, and murderers too, and workers of ill with the wives of men. This is the lowest level of Helheim. Those are the three ones that, you kind of screw that up, it's not going to look so hot for you after this is all said and done, because there's something you miss growing up in life. Treacherous men, such as Loki, that's the ego-driven individual engaging in the polite water cooler assassination of an individual so he might move forward in the world. Murderers, that's the hey, these people all over the world will take a life in a heartbeat because, well, they said something or they owe me money. It's all about money, that kind of nonsense. Or, people that shoot family members over a petty dispute. And workers of ill with the wives of men. I'm kind of partial to that one. The workers of ill with the wives of men. Be sneaking around to somebody else's back door, period. I mean, you just don't do it. That's a line you don't cross. And you have to ask yourself, what kind of man does that? Once again, an individual who is firmly in the grips of how important he thinks he is and how great he thinks he is. And, he's going to make another notch in the bedpost, or all the damn nonsense that comes with that kind of cock daddy bullshit. And it's all about how important they think they are. The quality, well, I'm a man because, no, you ain't. You're going to be chewed on by a serpent for eternity. Good. There Nithog sucked the blood of the slain, and the wolf tore men. Would you yet know more? So you won't even have to die before that kind of stuff starts to eat at you. You live a life like that, and I'm sitting there saying, that's the kind of individual that lives and operates from behind the safety of a wall they've built so big that they can't begin to even understand what it means to try to care about somebody else, to try to offer that support, to be of some kind of encouragement. They're always going to be thinking of how it's going to benefit them. Well, if I help this individual, if I stand beside them, if I listen to them, if I pay attention, how's this going to go for? What am I going to get out of the deal? How's that going to benefit me? Well, shit, man, you may not get nothing out of the deal, but you won't be one of those jokers. That's a pretty good start. Now, the Nostrand means the corpse strand, the land of the dead ruled by the goddess Hel. Here the wicked undergo tortures. I'm not going to read all that. The giantess old and ironwood sat in the east and bore the brood of Fenrir. Among these, one in monstrous guise was soon to steal the sun from the sky. These are the two wolves that chase the sun and the moon. Some people pass it off simply as as an eclipse myth, but you know, we don't, there's so much that goes on in this universe, we can't begin to understand what's going on. But what we do need to take in consideration is that there is so much going on in this universe that we don't understand. We think we got a pretty good grasp on it, but we don't really even understand our own history. We don't understand anything before the last ice age. We had a planet here that's 4 billion years old. We got 10,000 years, 12,000 years worth of human understanding in that. And we've been on the planet for about 200,000 years, and we don't get any of that. We want to sit here and talk about what we think we fucking know. I don't think so. There's got to be something better here. So it's going to be more than perhaps a solar myth, I think. But when you put that into perspective of how we're operating as workers of ill with men's wives, treacherous men and murderers too, it really begins to make it look like that's such a petty way to live. How, that's the best we can come up with? That's the best manner of living we can cultivate? Well, probably so, because that's probably what you learned. That's probably what we picked up from our parents, how to do this and how to do that. People will disappoint you all the time. They will lie to you. They will steal from you. They will cheat. They will cheat on you. They'll do it to the people you love just to get at you. They'll disappoint you in 100 ways. But if I'm going to sit here and try to act like I know something or act like I'm important or that I care or that I'm trying to do something better, is that really a set of rules that I have the luxury of operating under? No. But you got to call a spade a spade. You take care of them, give them a hand, pick them up, stand them up, brush them off, send them on their way. If they change their behavior, they change their behavior, they become better. If they don't, chances are they're going to be calling you again without fail. Can't tell you how many times I've seen it. There feeds he full on the flesh of the dead, and the home of the gods he reddens with gore. Dark grows the sun, and in summer soon come mighty storms, would you get no more. We're kind of, that's what we're dealing with. We're literally eating ourselves. We're devouring ourselves with information. We're constantly being fed information to keep us in a tizzy about what is important and what we should be angry about and how we should be righteously indignant. Well, did you do anything to help out your neighbor today? Did you do anything to, an act of kindness at all? You want to sit there and be righteously indignant about something that's going on in this world because we're told lives matter, but the rest of the world seems to think it isn't. I mean, it's a real pickle, isn't it? Which path should we choose? Are we going to stand and be upright and try to give that act of compassion? Or am I going to indulge in the kind of righteous indignation that keeps me in such a tizzy that I couldn't even begin to focus on whether or not someone might really just need a damn hug? I know that sounds cheesy as shit, but I think it's funny too. I'm a hugger. But there are storms on the horizon. There's big storms on the horizon. I mean, there's a lot of things that we're facing. Which one are we going to stand around and do? That individual that loves really understands what he's got to defend. That guy so when you look at some of it might be in here later on that I think it is, and I'll get to that, where Frey stands there and fights Surt with an antler. He's fighting to protect everything he loves with what he has at hand. He's out there giving it 110% with an antler, just like that one. You know what I mean? And he don't come out on top. That doesn't mean he doesn't do it, because he knows what he loves. If I'm righteously indignant about something, if I'm angry about some social or political issue, it's going to be very hard to motivate me to motivate anyone to run towards the gunfire in that situation. Because at the end of the day, people are going to look at it. They might smoke a joint or have a drink, and they're going to be looking at it and they're going to think, who gives a shit? I mean, it's really kind of how it breaks down. On a hill they're set, and smote on his harp, Egthar the joyous, the giant's warder. So that's Heimdall's counterpart. Above him, the cock and the birdwood crowed. Fair and red did Fjalar stand. Then to the gods crowed Gullumcamby. He wakes the heroes in Odin's hall, and beneath the earth does another crow, the rust-red bird at the bars of hell. So the Fjalar is the cock who crows at the waking the giants for the final struggle. So there, right there, there's your counterparts right there. People always miss that. The giants have something that's waking them to battle too. So every time we're sitting around thinking about what we're going to do to get to inspire us to be busy, you got to understand there's something else calling our opposition to do the same thing. Now, which are you going to pay attention to? Are you going to be able to go out there like Valley with a single-mindedness of purpose, a dedication to an idea, and fight through within one day without being encumbered by all of the nonsense he was taught was important? Or we're going to have to sit around and wait on somebody to tell us it's time to go? I don't know. You figure it out. It's your life. I mean, ain't nobody going to live it but you. As a matter of fact, it's your mind. And if you can't control the thoughts that you think in it, I promise you, somebody else will. Somebody will feed you a line of horse shit on a daily basis until you think exactly the same way they do. And then they're going to tell you to run towards the gunfire for something that doesn't mean a hill of beans to you. I served in the U.S. Army Infantry. I know it better than most. Now Garm howls loud before Nipilir. The fetters will burst and the wolf run free. Much do I know and more can see of the fate of gods, the mighty in fight. So now this big ass black dog that's at the entrance to Nipilir is on the loose, right? Where's his name mean that? It's down here somewhere. Garm is the dog who guards the gates of Hell's kingdom from Baldur's drama. So that's the dog that Baldur got to contend with, right? The shining solar deity, the in whose home the fewest baleful runes lie, the son of Odin and Frigg, right? Now that bad boy's loose. And you watch, and hell, you could make any kind of allegory with that. It could be a political idea, it could be a social justice idea, it could be Antifa or Black Lives Matter or the KKK or any of these social ideas. That's that dog cut loose, chewing shit up, getting everything ready. And somebody, what is Black Lives Matter? About 1,000 people have died or some nonsense, or no, 56 or something like that, and 1,000 people injured because they won't talk about how many people matter. Antifa, this well-funded communist insurgency in our country, that's Garm. Cut loose on our society, chewing shit up. Tyr is the one that kills Garm, and I'll get to that too. Brothers shall fight and fell each other. A civil war in the United States based upon issues that people are still debating what the importance of the other side was. Families killed family members. And sisters' sons shall kinship stain. I know people right now that have families. If you support Trump and their family, you probably ain't gonna get invited to the family reunion. Or if you support Bernie, you're gonna get made fun of mercilessly for being a fool. That's just the way it is. And that's in families where the bonds should be strongest. But we were all raised with this kind of nonsense that let us build a wall. So it's really okay it doesn't matter that they're really blood. They don't believe the way I do, so I can go ahead and kind of sever that artery. And well, they're suffering. Well, that's just the way they believe. They're just going to have to deal with it now, aren't they? Yeah. That ain't going to help change the world, folks. That ain't going to help this spirituality and faith ever sit down at the table of the world's religions and justify its seat there. If we're going to allow people to indulge in that kind of petty nonsense as if it might be legitimate, it means we got a ways to go, folks. Hard it is on earth with mighty whoredom. And I hate that. All you can do is look at Pornhub. All of these men and women who believe that the value of who they are resides squarely between their legs, and that's about it. And that's sad. That's a painful place to be, sometimes literally. And that's where we are. That whole internet is full of it. And it leaves scars that people can't really ever overcome. Axe time, sword time, shields are sundered, wind time, wolf time, ere the world falls, nor ever shall man each other spare. Get on Twitter sometime and make a comment and see the lengths to which these individuals will go. Matter of fact, that reminds me. So a couple of weeks ago, I brought it up last week. There was a friend of mine, and somebody decided they wanted to be so right about the argument that she went online and searched her and found that this young mother had lost her son. And so she, in her effort to be right and not to spare each other, she decided, well, I'm going to go in here and I'm going to slander her because she lost her first son. That is probably the most vile demonstration of that mentality right there. And it's the prevalent thought process on Twitter and Facebook. And there's no way they can rein it in. And I've always said, you know, that Nafalgar is a ship built out of the fingernails of the dead, and the head of it is Loki riding this thing in. The very demonstration of the uninspired human intellect, the ego run amok. And it's all these fingernails clicking away on these keyboards, making these shitty comments. I'm going to find this lady's name because I told her I'd make her famous, and I need to do that. I need to follow through on my word. If I can find her, she may be gone. Chi or something like that. I thought it was a man, and I cussed him out like a man. And then she said, "You stand up for women, but you'll say those kinds of things to me." And frankly, I was shocked that it was a woman to begin with. I mean, what woman would say that to another woman? How shallow. Anyway, I digress. I'll make her famous some other time, you know. Now, fast move the sons of Mim, and fate is heard in the notes of the Gjallar horn. Loud blows Heimdall, the horn is aloft. In fear quake all who on hell roads are. Yggdrasil shakes and shiver on high. The ancient limbs and the giant is loose. To the head of men does oath and give heed, but the kinsman of Surt shall slay him soon. That mindset of not spraying each other's brother and the righteous indignation, we're seeing it. This axe time, sword time, shields are sundered, wind time, wolf time, ere the world falls. We're seeing it act out in the streets all over the world. I don't care if it's the Middle East or Europe or Africa or America or the United States. We're seeing people in the street raising 7 levels of hell because they're throwing a fit because, well, things aren't going my way and I have a right to say this, and you triggered me with your microaggression and all this other nonsense. Yeah, that note heard in the Gjallarhorn, these good times have produced a bunch of weak men. And Justin Garcia said it best. Master Chimmy said, the problem with most men today is that too many of today's men are trying to screw around and be a strong woman. Well, it's true. Only a good man, Jordan Peterson says it best, man. He said a good man, you know, yeah, I wish I could remember that. A good man is the guy that has that violence and stuff under control and can handle it. He's not going to be suckered into something. These people are all being suckered into everything, and they're creating a continuous stream, and we're being fed in 17 different 24-hour news networks that are constantly bombarding our mind with all these people in the street. And then some point, somewhere along the way, late at night when you're eating chips or Cheetos in your mom's basement, drinking a beer, that, you know what? They're kind of right. And there we go. You know, it's a constant kind of bombardment of that mindset. And there's the note of the Gjallarhorn. Maybe the Gjallarhorn is a 24-hour news network that feeds us horse shit. You know, hell, I don't know. In fear quake all who on hell roads are. And we're all going to die, no matter what. I don't care how magnificent you are. I don't care how strongly you love. I don't care how greatly you live. Someday you're going to give it up. Someday you're going to fall by the wayside. And the greatest thing you could ever do, I've said it many times, the only mark you're ever going to leave on this world is the quality of people your children become. Period. They're going to look at me and say, well, his son never really turned out. He was a good man, but his son didn't turn out to be really much of anything. Or is it going to be, he was a good man. His kids are fantastic. That means something. That's important. That gets you through this. How fair the gods, how fair the elves, all Jotunheim groans, the gods are at council, loud roar the dwarves by the doors of stone, the masters of rock, would you get no more? Now Garm howls loud before Nipelir, the fetters will burst and the wolf run free, much do I know and more can see, of the fate of gods the mighty in fight. From the east comes Hrim with a shield held high, in giant wrath does the serpent writhe, over the waves he twists, and the tawny eagle gnaws corpses screening, Naglfar is loose. Hrim is the leader of giants who comes as the helmsman of the ship Naglfar. Serpent Mythgarsorm, one of the children of Loki and Angerbotha. The serpent was cast into the sea where he completely encircles the land. Especially the eagle, the giant Hregvilir, who sits at the edge of heaven in the form of an eagle and makes the winds with his wings. Some of that stuff you're not ever going to read anywhere else. Nafalgar, the ship which is made out of dead men's nails to carry the giants to battle. A lot of stuff, it's all coming. I mean, it's all happening. Now, here's the thing. This happens on a cosmic level. It happens on a planetary level. It also happens on an individual level. And there's a whole world of stuff we got to figure out how to deal with. And what I'm trying to do here is tie all three of them together, because if you're going to survive, if you're going to make it, if you're going to go ahead and live greatly and love hard and become what you're supposed to become, you got to contend with all of these things that are going on inside of you too. What's going to be that tower moment in your life that helps you, figures you out what you're going to change? What's going to be that great defining moment where you really make a stand about who you are? What's going to be that moment where you begin to shed some of those old ideas? There was a concept that came up a while back, and a friend of mine said, when Tyr sacrifices his hand, that wolf, the Fenris wolf, so he sacrifices his hand for the safety of a community that he loved. That's a real important thing to consider. Nobody else was going to do it. And there's a real legitimate fear in an ancient society that if you ain't got what it takes to operate with both hands, you're not going to be valuable in the fight. And yet he did it anyway and was still valuable in the fight. They bound that wolf, and it was a constant threat. Men's and women's emotions are the same thing. We try to bind all that shit up and tie it down and wrap it up tight, and then we build a wall around ourselves, and then we bind it all up. Let that son of a bitch go. Let it burn through everything that you ever thought was important, and figure out how to climb out of that pit that you've built for yourself, so you might stand up and learn how to love again without being so terrified that somebody's going to hurt you that you might become something greater. That's the real trick. That's called courage. That's running towards the gunfire. That's what all of this is about. I can talk about these cosmic things all day long, and it's so distant and far away. Yeah, that's good to know, and I can identify some of that in society. Well, here's the real trick. When are you going to identify it in yourself? When are you going to start looking at the stuff in here? Because this is the real deal that changes the world. Not any of that other horse shit we're told is important. This right here. This is going to have a direct effect on my children, the people I love, my mother, my stepfather, my sister, the people in my life that I really and truly care about greatly, that I do love. It's this right here that's what's going to count, not anything else. Not money, not nothing. Yeah, they may not be on the same path. They're still contending with that somewhere along that tree, the axis mundi, somewhere they're still trying to climb up a little bit. They're still trying to do something. They're still trying to grow. They may not be where you are, and they may shit all over you. Do it anyway. Run towards the gunfire. This is what changes the world. When all of us are doing it, this is what counts. Over the sea from the north there sails a ship with the people of hell. At the helm stands Loki. After the wolf do wild men follow. There's your antiphon. And with him the brother of Bylist goes. Surt fares from the south with the scourge of branches. The son of the battle god shone from his sword. The crags are sundered, the giant women sink, the dead throng hellway, and heaven is cloven. And this is also possibly a reference. I wrote a whole book based on that little thing right there, and one more down here where it talks about the Younger Dryas cometary impact. What if we were here? And we don't know. I got petroglyphs in Canada that perfectly match petroglyphs in Sweden, same time frame and everything. Nobody got into a boat and just floated across the sea because maybe there's something over there. No, but hell no. I'm telling you right now, in that time frame, in that day and age, nobody would have done that. I think there's something over there. What do you say? Let's get 50 men and convince them. Let's get on the boat and just float away. We'll sail into the west and it'll all be okay. We might find treasure. Bullshit. There was something that told them how to get there. There was something that said, hey, if you go over here and then you go over here, there was an old map. There was old sailors talking. There were men that had been there before. We happened to find the accounts of the ones that were prominent enough to leave a record of it that mattered. Nobody went somewhere. They didn't just start walking. Take, for example, any of us. I'm going to start walking south. Wonder what'll happen. Now, I haven't created any new emotions from the people of that day and age. I haven't created any new thought process, my pain, my anger, all of that nonsense, the things I need to do to survive, all of it is still in me as it was in them. And I'm telling you right now, I'm not just going to walk south. I don't know what's down there. I ain't never been south. You tell me somebody's going to get in a boat because they heard a rumor? You're going to have a hard time selling me on that. And no, I don't think they're heroes. I think they're the only ones that were recorded. Now I digress. I get excited about that shit. Anyway, Surt fares from the south, the scourge of branches, the son of the battle god. Now, this is a fire. This is a continent-wide wildfire. The Younger Dryas impact is not just one moment in time. We're talking about a 10-year span of this planetary history where these comets, every 6 months, fragments of this impacted comet would rain down on the planet, and lightning, and it would create continent-wide wildfires. And this is Surt faring from the south, the scourge of branches. If you look at even the basic archaeological history of the United States, underneath every Clovis culture, I think it's above every Clovis culture site, there's a layer of black mat about that big. And that's ash. That's ash from a continent-wide wildfire that burnt everything. Everything. Somehow that was remembered in this ancient myth. Somebody was here before. The Solutrean hypothesis has some pretty good stuff there. There's a world of stuff there we don't know. That's what I was exploring in life and the love of life. Now comes Helene, yet another hurt. Now comes to Helene, yet another hurt. Now in this particular reference, they're saying this is another name for Frigga. When Odin fares to fight with the wolf, and Beli's fair slayer seeks out Surt, there must fall the joy of Frigg. Now, that is, the joy of Frigg is Odin, her husband, and he falls to the wolf, right? And Beli's fair slayer, this is Frey, as he fights Surt with an antler, an elk antler, a staghorn antler, or something. Helene apparently is another name for Frigg, Odin's wife. After losing her son Balder, she is fated now to see Odin slain by the wolf Fenrir. Beli's slayer, the god Frey, who killed the giant Beli with his fist. He belonged to the race of the Vanir, and was the brother of Freya. The joy of Frigg is Odin. So once again, the footnotes are worth it, guys. I'm telling you. So now not only do we have a story here that tells us of a powerful idea of from as above, so below. That's a constant throughout all of these ancient pagan spiritualities, this idea of as above, so below. From the molecular level to the cosmic level, you have the same kind of forces at work that keep everything together. Now, all of a sudden, what if that's a historical reference left in myth? Now, all of a sudden, my lore is much, much older than everybody says it is, and has a hell of a lot more validity than a lot of the stuff that's passing around in this world as if it might be legitimate. Because that means somebody saw it happen here. And they know that that Younger Dryas impact hit that ice sheet in Canada and another one in Greenland. I don't know when, but that one that hit Canada created a tidal wave that flash melted a 1 or 2 mile thick glacier and washed a tidal wave 1,000 feet tall across the Pacific Northwest. It threw enough ejecta up into the atmosphere where it rained powerfully for 3 days and flooded canyons and volcanic craters. It created the Snake River Canyon when Lake Bonneville broke its dam. It all across the West, there was this huge destruction. Now the Woods Hole Oceanic Institute says the same thing was happening into the Arctic Sea on the other side of Canada. So it was just washing across, and then all these comets are washing down and burning everything that's left. You couldn't have survived that if you were in space. But if you were on a boat somewhere trading with Teotihuacan or something in the Amazon or something over in Egypt, well, you might have survived. And you would have had a portion of that culture still with you. And you could share it and begin anew and find a new place in woods that were verdant and full of life and streams and rivers, not much different than the ones from North America. Some people scoff that I've made this connection. I don't think it's that difficult to understand. Then comes Sigfather's mighty son, Vithar, to fight with the foaming wolf. In the giant's son does he thrust his sword full to the heart, and his father is avenged. The son has what it takes to run towards the gunfire at the loss of someone he loves. What would happen if we had what it takes to do that before we lose someone we love? And that's always important. Hither comes the son of Hlothin, the bright snake gapes to heaven above. Against the serpent goes Odin's son. In anger smites the warder of earth. Forth from your homes must all men flee. 9 paces fare the son of Fjorgyn, and slain by the serpent, fearless he sinks. And that's the warder of men fighting the Midgard serpent. He kills the damn thing, but the venom from its breath, he takes 9 paces and falls. And that's just heartbreaking, isn't it? There's the hero we all rely on. There's the God, the Sigfather's the father of victory. There is something important that's passed on after the fathers have died and their sons take their place. Absent all of these things of a man's ego that brought us to this crossroads in our life, in this world, in this universe, they become something much better. The sun turns black. The earth sinks into the sea. So the sun turns black. You've got this huge eject in the atmosphere. The sun doesn't shine. You have, multiple collapses of agriculture across the world, starvation. The earth sinks into the sea. When you have that much water washing across the parts of the continent, or great tidal waves from other impacts this lasted for 10 years. It wasn't just a once and done thing. The earth does sink into the sea. It would raise the sea levels. It would raise that much water melting into the oceans would raise the seas high enough to inundate a landmass the size of Europe and China combined. So the earth sinks into the sea. The hot stars down from heaven are whirled. There's your comet. Fierce grows the steam and the life-eating flame. There's your continent-wide wildfires, till fire leaps high about heaven itself, because that's what it would be to any individual that's sitting here trying to survive that. Now, if you're, let's say you're just a farmer that's trying to make it through, and he's trying to protect everything that he loves, and he's got an elk handler implement that he farms his land with, and there's a wildfire coming towards his home, and he's out there doing his level best to protect what he loves with a fucking hoe made out of an antler and fighting that fire with everything he's got. Well, that's an interesting thought too, huh? Now we have Frey protecting everything that he loves with what he has in hand, as every man should be willing to do. Now do I see now Garm howls loud before Nippler, the fetters will burst and the wolf run free. Much do I know and more can see of the fate of the gods, the mighty in fight. Now do I see the earth anew, rise all green from the waves again. The cataracts fall and the eagle flies, the fish he catches beneath the cliffs. Now see, after all of that, Hagalaz is an important thing. Hagalaz is an important room because it means the hailstone. Now in like 250 BC, there was a problem. It was cataloged, I think, in Italy. I may be a little off on the date, but they said they had a problem with hailstones that year. And throughout history, there's lots of recorded instances with these comets coming down and changing the environment and creating things. And I put a list of them in the book. But Hagalaz, maybe it ain't just a hailstone. Maybe it's not just a piece of ice. Maybe it's a big damn comet changing everything, because that is a radical change. The fathers are going to die fighting. The sons are going to avenge their father, but they're going to be left with what it takes to rebuild. The gods and Ithaval meet together. Of the terrible girdler of earth they talk, and the mighty past they call to mind, and the ancient runes of the ruler of gods. Now this is the description. Let's see here. This is where they try to tie it into Christianity. But if you use I guess you want to call it logic, you can, because that's what I'm certainly going to fucking do. What I just said, that tells me this is much older than anything that might even resemble the advent of monotheism. See, I don't think we took anything from them. I think they took a hell of a lot from us. I mean, how is she going to convince people to buy into this bullshit? Call it Christianity. Well, somebody's going to do it for you. When for 10,000 years, we've been sitting there saying, listen, you've got to deal with some of this stuff. You've got to step up to the plate. You're going to have to handle this on your own. You're going to have to bear up under the load. You're going to have to, if it's meant to be, it's up to me. That was the mindset, because you had to survive. You had to build something great. You had to raise a family that would stand up for their father, that would defend their mother and their sister, that would make the appropriate sacrifices to be a quality husband. There was monies involved back then. It wasn't all the love that we have the luxury of today. But these gods, they meet in Ithaval and they talk. This is Vidar and Valley and all of these other sons of gods that make it through. In wondrous beauty, once again, shall the golden tables stand mid the grass, which the gods had owned in the days of old. Then fields unsowed bared ripened fruit. All ills grow better, and Balder comes back. Balder and Hoth dwell in Hroth's battle hall. That's Balder and the one that took his life, Hoder, the one that was deceived. They dwell together in Valhalla. And the mighty gods, would you get no more? Then Honir wins the prophetic wand. I don't know what that is. Maybe it's even one of Apollo's arrows. And the sons of the brother of Tvegi abide in Vendheim now. Would you get no more? Now, once we go through our lives and we figure out how to get outside that wall and we let that wolf loose and let it burn out all of the nonsense that we thought was important, it really does seem like that. It really does seem like I'm in a new world with a new horizon. People tell me that all the time. People that get a second chance at life, people that go through that stuff. And I don't care if it's a midlife crisis or dealing with drug addiction or going through a divorce or dealing with any of that kind of emotional pain. And we begin to identify the things that brought us to that crossroads to begin with. And we step through that and we take that first step into something new, and we begin to grab a hold and cultivate the ideas that this spirituality and faith have to offer in our life. it really does seem like things become a lot easier. It really does seem like those far, wide new horizons really might be within reach. It really does feel like the realm of the spirit might be roomy and broad and roomy and inclusive for our families and us. There's something very special in that, or it would not be something that has been so documented throughout history. The transition of a man, the transition of a woman into something better. It's been talked about and documented, and people write about it and they share the experience, strength, and hope of going through this kind of bullshit in their life and then figuring out what it means to really stand up. People pay tens of thousands of dollars to go and listen to someone that made it through a tough time in their life because, well, probably they're going through one of their own. And I'm not really sure where to go from here. You can start by loving somebody. You can start by loving yourself. And the best way to do that is to sit down, imagine the perfect partner that you want in your life. Imagine that person and imagine that person loving you. Imagine how they would treat you and smile at you and take care of you and love you and be your equal and your partner. Now treat yourself like that. That's how you do that shit. And you can't start at just one thing at a time. Ain't got to do it all at once. Some people will be blessed with a powerful spiritual experience. Sometimes it's pretty and sometimes it ain't. But for most of us, take it a step at a time and figure out how that person would treat me when I'm feeling this way. Now we're talking about something really spectacular, and it will seem like wondrous beauty once again in the sunsets and the sunrises, in the smiles of our child's faces, and golden tables that stand amid the grass, and fields unsowed bear ripened fruit. Things become a lot easier because we're no longer distracted by all the extraneous bullshit that we spent so much time trying to protect ourselves against, not knowing we were the greatest purveyors of that filth that kept us from becoming something great. We're sitting here building a wall to protect ourselves from our own nonsense. And all the while, doing our best to hurt those people closest to us. My goodness, why couldn't I have known this in my 20s? Because I would not have understood. I couldn't have grasped this. And then I was pretty sharp in my 20s. This is where we are in the world today. This is where many of us are in our own lives. You don't need to sit here and try to convince me of how important you are. You want to convince me of how important you are? Let me see the kind of action that helps you get rid of that kind of nonsense where you're constantly focused on telling everybody else, well, you're important because. Oh, how so? Show me that, because that's what I want to see. Because that gives me hope. That gives me hope that I can try one more time. That great opiate of the masses. Yeah. It's what we all need. It's what we're all looking for. It's what everybody really wants. Somebody say, you know what? You made a good decision trying this. It's going to be okay. That's all we need. I'm telling you, man, you'd be surprised if you could say that with a smile on your face, a little bit of warmth in your heart to somebody that's trying to do something big in this world. They can get through that kind of shit, because when you're in the middle of it, it feels like that very thing. It is the end of my world. I am crushed. I am destroyed. My heart is broken. My soul is rent. I don't know what I'm going to do. Maybe I should end it. Yeah. Because people think that all day, every day. You see all the shit going on in the world and people protesting the street, and it's all going to hell in a handbasket. How do we get through it? How do we even try? Why should we even try? And then maybe, just maybe, somebody will come along and say, you know what, come on, let's stand up one more time. They may only be there for a day or two, but that's an important day, isn't it? Because if you make it, it's going to feel just like that. Yep. All right, guys, I appreciate y'all listening to my nonsense this evening. Anybody got any questions? Because I got a really good feeling about this one. No? Good deal. We've all learned. Everyone gets an A. I'll see you on Monday. Go ahead and grab life by the nose and whip its ass. Damn it, I almost choked, Melissa. You ain't right.
Why? Thanks, man. I'm glad I got an A. I'm fucking thrilled.
Ryan, you can take your A back. I don't like participation trophies.
See?
Jason, you're going to probably only ever get a B plus anyway. I'm sorry, son.
Awesome. Gives me something to look forward to each day.
Consistent.
It is. He's consistently an idiot. I get it, man. It's okay. Oh man, I really do appreciate everybody coming. I love to see all y'all's faces. So,
Yeah.
Ron has his hand up. I like it. Or is that clapping? I don't know what that means.
One hand clap.
Okay. All right, guys. If anybody has any questions, man, I can probably wax poetic for a little bit longer.
Brian, I think I might have a question.
Okay, let me see what kind of bullshit. I've got a bullshit answer, and then I'll see if I can get you a real one.
Well, yeah, I'm kind of curious what your take on this is. We touched a little bit on the nature of the wolf age and how that kind of applies to us. I remember Survive the Jive maybe a year ago did a video about this being kind of a parallel among Indo-European traditions. And I'm wondering, do you think that our wolf age is kind of as close as we can find to a parallel to the
Yeah, I think the problem with trying to label it like that is that we always want to compare it to the kind of weapons in hands ideas of ancient soldiers and ancient warring tribes, and we want to kind of look at it in wolf age. But you wouldn't have to press me too hard to look at what's going on in the world today and really say, yeah, that's kind of where we are. This is kind of a wolf age, isn't it? I mean, is that kind of what you're getting at?
Honestly, looking at it just the most straightforward way I can, I have to say it does look that way.
I mean, yeah,
things are pretty dire, it looks like.
And so we have all of these people that want to believe in this faith, that want to get in this spirituality and all these other pagan faiths and indigenous spiritualities. And we become very clearly aware of this it's like an ever increasing amount of pressure on, you need to be triggered by this. You need to be, it's all of this stuff just being forced down our throats to really, to make us want to do something. And we're sitting here going, no, we're checking out of this game. I ain't doing this. But yeah, I feel it, man. I mean, there's a lot of people that feel it. Now, will it be like this in the world? Hell, I don't know. The sun could go micronova tomorrow. We might have a common impact. That thing, every 6 months we pass through the debris field of the comet that caused the Younger Dryas impact, and we don't know what's out there. We have no idea what the size of those things are. One 5 miles wide hits Africa, it's going to screw something up. If somebody drops a nuke in the Himalayas, it's so high up in the atmosphere, it'll have a worldwide effect. I think what we look at when we try to define a wolf age is, it's the probability that some of this truly terrifying stuff and the loss of society and the people we love is closer at hand than even remember in the Cold War, they had the doomsday clock bullshit, and it was in the Watchmen too, they kind of made fun of it. But I remember that when I was a kid in the 70s, during the, I don't know if it was the height of the Cold War, but it was certainly stressful for a little kid.
Well, I'm practically a baby, so that's a little before my time. I know the global warming people are always trying to readjust that thing.
And see, you're right. See, the global warming thing is really driven by a lot of stuff, but not necessarily always science. There's a channel on YouTube called Suspicious Observers. That guy, I think, is I really think he's one of the truly unique scientific minds on YouTube. I think he's really pertinent in everything that he says. The largest, most powerful thing in our universe, the thing that drives everything that happens in our solar system, is the sun. And much of what they're talking about with global warming, they haven't even taken into account cosmic rays or solar forcing or solar wind or flares or a grand solar minimum. And he points that out every day. And if you haven't checked out his channel, then I really highly recommend that you do. Some of it is fairly deep with regards to the scientific, but if you pay attention to him and watch some of his videos, he really lays it out in a very clear, succinct manner that you can get a grasp on it. And we begin to see that we're not as safe as we think we are. I think that's the real thing about all of it, Terry, is that at the bottom line is we're not as safe as we think we are. We go to work every day, we make some money, we pay someone else for the comfort of our home, our food, our water, and all of it is balanced literally on the edge of a razor. And one of the things that monotheism tried to convince the world of was that, well, God will take care of it. Well, fuck no, he won't. Because I've been in some real shitty situations and I didn't see anybody come out there. But that's the real key component of faith when you're trying to manipulate the masses, is to direct attention away from the fact that life is a very precarious proposition in this world. There's nothing certain. Fucking tornado could drop out of the sky right now and suck this thing up, and I'd go flying off over here and, you know, land in Texas somewhere. And hopefully if I do, my ass is facing up so they can all kiss it. But we have that, this is one Sooner nation here. I'll have you know, it's a boomer Sooner. Anyway, that's what we're really looking at when we're faced with it. When we come in here in our spirituality and we're faced with, this is a cycle, because it says the beginning of the Veluspa that she remembers of an age before. So this has happened before, this cycle, and we're becoming very cognizant of the cycle. We're just now beginning to reintegrate our minds and our thought processes into the environment in which we live. We've been alienated for such a long time, and now all of a sudden we come back into it, and then we become very aware of all of the nonsense going on around us that we have up here to now been a part of, and understand that's not the real issue at hand. So yeah, but just from a strictly political, social kind of view, I started out with on this evening, you know, life is real cheap in a lot of parts of the world. They will sell people, they will harvest your organs, life is cheap. And these people are in the street raising hell because, well, they didn't want to pay a fine, or Black Lives Matter. You know, hey, I don't know what to tell you, man. Go try that shit in Southeast Asia, see how it works for you. You know? It really is look like we're in that point, that we're at that point in the world. We got to deal with it in our lives, so we might be that voice of reason to help others, guide others through the kinds of times that are coming. That's all there is to it. Am I going to be someone that's going to be a voice of reason to inspire and encourage people? Or am I going to be the kind of person that will get people fired up and righteously indignant to take action that I think is necessary and not what's going to be best for them in their world? That's the real key, crucial component to all of this. Can I help someone take an action that's going to help them live a better life? Be a happy, so relevant, but you know, is that what we're going for here? Because that's, from what I can see, I got all these gods giving me example of trying to do, and that thing with the Rig Thula that I spoke about last week, where it talks about the one of the couples that says they lived and were happy. Man, that really means something to me. I've been hanging on to that for a minute. They lived and were happy. Gosh, that's so important. One of the reasons I don't talk a lot about the wolf age is it's a tool that someone in my position, and I'm going to speak very frankly now, it's a tool that I can use to manipulate other individuals to want to do the kind of things that I think might be important and not what might be best for them. So I kind of shy away from it. But when it comes to dealing with the crippling emotional status of most individuals' lives, it's a very pertinent thing to helping them step through the pain of how they've lived up to now so they might become something better. Do you see what I'm saying, Terry?
I do. Yeah. Yeah. It looks like it's going to be a matter of we need to prepare ourselves for all of this, and we need to do our best to live virtuously.
That's absolutely right. We got to do the right thing no matter what. And sometimes that might mean loving somebody that ain't worth a shit. It might mean loving somebody that stabbed you in the back. It doesn't mean you got to bring them in and sit them at your table. But it does mean that there's kind of an obligation once we rise above the morass that's keeping everybody down, kept us down to be quite frank. And once we step above that a little bit, we do kind of have an obligation to stick a hand out to help a brother, to help a sister. You see what I'm saying? And that's the thing that stymies the severest of effects. You know, what if Vithar had been there standing next to Odin in that battle? What if Thor's sons had been standing on either side of that great worm as he tussled with that beast? Why, things would be much different, wouldn't they? On an uninterrupted timeline, if this pagan faith had been allowed to continue on without being conquered, in the very last crusade from the church was against Lithuania and pagan faiths of Northern Europe, would it be Frey in charge? An argument could be made that Thor is the primary deity of this pantheon now, with all of the even Marvel comics. And I hate to say it, but he's the most prominent, isn't he? So I don't know. It's just we got to take care of each other. And to be able to take care of each other in the right way, to live that virtuous life, we got to get rid of those things. And one of the primary things we got to get rid of is a fear of pain. I don't want to risk loving this person because I know they're not worth a shit. But do it anyway. And start by taking care of ourselves. That's how we navigate these treacherous waters of a wolf age, of a world that's dedicated to stopping us from doing things, to a world that really doesn't want to see us be successful. I mean, quite frankly, the world could really give a shit whether or not you make $1 million, 10 million, or $1 billion. But the instant you do, they will all want to come sit at your table. It's just the way it is. Yeah, I think that stuff gets me fired up, man.
I think it's a really great point that you make, that even when somebody's screwing up, it's kind of more of a matter of maturity, that, you know, if you're more mature than somebody else and somebody else tripped, fell, or throwing a bratty fit somewhere, you know, the more mature some person has to sometimes whoop them on the ass, tell them they're screwing up because they care, not because that they're annoyed or it's awkward or anything like that. And I think that's kind of something that's been lacking for a while, is that proverbial spanking that you need to do to take care of each other.
No, I've said that a couple times now. I've said that a couple times now with these, you know, people that beat their wives, or women that are running around on their husbands, or people that abuse their children, or, you know, where are the friends in that life that say, you need to quit acting like a jackass?
Absolutely.
Be responsible.
Slap across the ass.
Yeah, that's so. There's kind
accountability.
Accountability is important. I think maturity is a good term for it, but I also think it could be, there's an argument to be made for some of the 9 noble virtues. That self-discipline, that industriousness, that perseverance, but that courage and honesty are at the top of that list for a reason. We got to be honest enough to say, this person is important to me, and if I take this action, it's going to cause them pain. Is it really worth it to me? You know, and sometimes that's really hard to do. Sometimes it's really, you got to be honest about why you're doing the things you're doing. And sometimes I have a hard time with it. You know, it's a part of growth. It's a part of being able to identify that. It's part of being able to say, yep, you got to do better, son. And I got to talk to myself that way, not because I want to be hard ass like I'm still in the Army, but because I want to enjoy those fields unsowed, bearing ripening fruit, and the hills grow better.
Absolutely.
And I think the older I get, the less I want to hurt people. I don't always fucking succeed at it. But you know, you try. You got to keep trying.
Well, I know one thing for sure is that anytime I've had a breakthrough life, or I feel like I've grown anyway, kind of shape and form, it was never without any form of discomfort. So. Yeah,
you know, I said, and that's exactly why I said sometimes you got to stand there and take it. You got to take that ass chew, and you got to come face to face with the damage you've caused. You've got to sit there and listen to it, and you've got to really pay attention to what you've done. And it ain't pretty all the time. It ain't top notch, top flight stuff, and it ain't classy, and it ain't cool. And sometimes it's just a matter of standing there and taking it. And it sucks. It sucks ass. Matter of fact, it sucks bad enough if you're man enough to do it that you might not fucking want to do it anymore. If I fall out of this chair, y'all are gonna laugh.
I think it's a really great point too. You mentioning the Roman Empire and the church kind of hunting everybody down, because we kind of, America, it's the new Roman Empire. I was kind of thinking about that the other day. And instead of going to monotheism where everybody's given an excuse, a lot of people are running towards polytheistic, pagan faiths. And I think, yeah, sure, maybe the next empire might fall, but we have a really great opportunity if this faith is taken seriously with the right kind of accountability to build something better than the last time it happened.
There's an interesting case to be made for people that are returning to these various indigenous and pagan faiths, in that in a place where everybody's being told we're all the same and we're all equal, there's something inside of individuals, and I don't care what race they are, that reminds us that we come from powerful stock. We come from something greater. We're not all the same. There's strengths over here, there's strengths over here, there's weaknesses over here, there's weaknesses over here.
Right.
But at the end of the day, people want to feel like they're worth something. And,
Absolutely.
And when you live in a world where everybody's saying, well, somebody else will take care of it for you, there's something inside of us that makes us want to step up to the plate somehow. No, we don't always get it right. Sometimes it comes out really bad, and sometimes it comes out really great. But I think, I wonder sometimes if that cultural revolution of the 60s that everybody wants to call degenerate, which were my parents, who were not degenerate, if they hadn't have taken that step, would I have been courageous enough to take the steps I have? Granted, there's a lot of pain and bullshit involved in all of that growing up in life. But I think when I felt like I wanted to continue to be something relevant, and I think that's the real thing. I think this thing that really crippled me the most when I last time I truly failed greatly, when I had screwed up and lost a company that was making me a nice mid 6-figure salary. No, I don't have a wife anymore. Children are kind of scattered. Truly a failure. There was something inside of me that kept saying, you're not relevant anymore. And I think that's really one of the most, that's a scary thought for a man that has achieved and succeeded in the ways that I've achieved and succeeded, that I'd no longer be relevant. And I think a lot of people deal with it at the end of the breakups of relationships. Well, I simply wasn't relevant in that person's life. That's not necessarily true. Sometimes you're just at different points on the path. And it's not all black and white. It's not all or nothing. You know, and that's the thing that we all have been told by movies. It's all or nothing. That's not the case. That's by no means the case.
False dichotomies, and
it really is. It really is. It really is. It's caused a lot of damage. I mean, in my generation, Gen X, you know, I look at most of the people my age, and it's as if they exist in an emotional Ganunan gap, an emotional void, because we went out there and tried so many times with the set of instructions that we had, and they never worked. And you know, it's the first time it happens. It's really surprising as you go out there and you do everything that you've been taught to do. That this is what makes you a man, and you go out there and you still end up divorced and alone in wintertime in Alaska. And,
that's rough.
Yes, it was. And it's a real kick in the balls. I mean, it'll take the wind right out of your sails. And then to try your best to come up short. But I for some reason, somewhere along the way, I picked up a body of knowledge that reminded me to go out there and try again and love anyway. And failed at that too. And then go out there and try again and love anyway, and failed at that too. I think we should never be afraid to try. And I see this generation that exists in this emotional void. They're largely afraid to try anymore. They really are. I see it in so many people that they're afraid to try anymore. And that's the saddest thing. And I think that's one of the most important aspects of this lifelines that gods give us, is these gods going through all of these ordeals to become something better. They're not afraid to try again. And even though they know it's going to hurt, Tyr knew full well getting his hand bit off was going to hurt like a motherfucker. And he did it anyway, for love.
Odin still did it, and he knew every single detail.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And, so there's something to be said for that. Trying anyway. Just get up and try it anyway. Yeah, it might not work. It's going to hurt. And it's going to suck. Try anyway. It's not going to kill you. Try anyway. Oh, the lower
never
hand.
Try.
Randy, what are you doing, boy? Let's see your.
All right, are you there?
Yeah, I got you now.
Okay. What I was going to say is, you kept saying try again. I believe that you have to try every single day. That when you stop, like just take love for instance. When you stop trying to love, that's when you lose the love. In my belief, is you have to try every day. Like, I mean, I try to make it a point every single day to prove to my wife how much I love her. Every single day. And I believe that is the thing. That's what I'm not saying for everybody, but I believe that that's what causes a lot of relationship problems. People get comfortable with that. Oh, she knows I love her, or he knows I love him, and
they will take that shit for granted, won't they?
Yes. And you have to keep every single day. It's like you can't stop. It's kind of like, if you're running a water mill, and if you stop turning it, there's no electricity. You have to keep turning it. You have to. You can't take a break.
No, you can't, man. Hey,
it's funny. He nails something right on the head in the book of 7 Habits of Highly Successful People. It's called being proactive. If you're proactive, everything, you go out and you just do it. Nothing's going to happen to you. Reactive people sit there and just
I got to make this woman. I got to make this woman famous. That right there. Oh, see, it's blinded by the light.
I can't
on Twitter, she is TI-CHEE, and it's a hand with a wedding ring on. And that is the woman that decided she was going to assault another woman's pain by reminding her that she lost her first son. That's your wolf age right there, Terry. That's the kind of chicken shit behavior that brings it on. And her name, it goes by TICHEE, TI-CHEE. That's Summer Cow. I wish I could show you this. Yeah. Go on there and say hello. Tell her we love you. Spread some love. Come on. Fucking bitch.
But yeah, no, absolutely. You do need to be proactive in all the things that matter in your life. Love, that water wheel.
We got to, yeah. You're right. Anybody else got anything?
Yeah, Brian, hey, I just want to thank you again, man. I know the first time we spoke, I made mention to you about my being impressed with your ability to read and analyze the lore. You know what I mean? And I wanted to tell you, man, I really appreciate it, because every time you have this meeting, everything you say, it's very inspiring. And for our folk, especially in today's day and age, man, we need stuff like that.
I really appreciate that, man. Thank you for that feedback. I really do appreciate it.
Right on, brother.
I won't be able to walk out of the bedroom door. My hand will be like this fucking big. I got it. Yeah. Oh, Melissa, do you have something to say, hon?
No, I was just clapping.
Huh?
I was just clapping.
Oh, that was a clap? I can't tell a clap and a raised hand. I don't know.
If it's a raised hand shows up usually at the bottom of the screen for us.
Oh, okay.
With a name with it. And if it's clapping, it's in the box with the person.
Clapping in the box. I'll remember that.
Yeah, or I can even do this. Look at, see, I could even give you a thumbs up.
There we go. I said some fucking brilliant things tonight, Melissa. Where was my thumbs up? I needed some more thumbs up, man. I'm right on flying blind out here. Come on, man.
Oh, no, look, it limits me to only one thumbs up. I'm sorry.
Okay,
Well,
guys.
next week I'll try to give you another one.
I appreciate it. Oh, there you go. Thank you, Shawnee. I never count on you, hon. All right. Anybody have anything else they want to add? It's 9:30. I think I'm gonna. Tomorrow's Monday, and of course I have to drive for six hours and work 13. But I'll grab it by the nose and whip its ass.
That's right.
Because I'm
every day.
Because I'm a 9-pound hammer, but do whatever works. All right,
Thanks,
guys.
Brian. You have a
I
good night.
appreciate every one of you. I think you're, man, I hope everybody tomorrow has a really good day. Thank you all for joining me.
You too.
Thanks, Brian.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
If anyone says anything bad about me, you tell them all I'm right.
I was just coming at it a little bit
Got
more.
you, bud. I got you.
Absolutely.
Watch their reaction because it's going to be classic. You might want to record it. All right.
All right, man. Thank
Thanks,
you.
guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.